Hi, I'm Leonie from beesforlife.org and I want to take you on a journey. The journey of a bee. So imagine to be a honeybee. Now you are a bee. You are about 700,000 times smaller than a human. Now you have 6 legs, 5 eyes, and 4 wings. And you feel the strong urge to visit flowers. A lot of flowers. And why? You need to keep your family alive because your family is made of 50,000 people and there are hundreds of youngsters who need to eat, and very fast. So suddenly you can't think of anything else and you lift yourself up in the air and you want to scout the landscape. Full of hope, you check what's down there. Any flowers inside? Yet from above you see this. Oh man, it's not going. A rice monoculture. Kilometers of rice fields. Oh no, you know what that means. There's zero food for you. And there are zero nectar flowers for you in there. Too bad. Now you must fly a long way. A long, exhausting flight. Your destination is the end of that massive rice field. On the way, you think of the delicious flower nectar at the end of the rice field. Your sisters told you about a rich meadow full of blooming wildflowers. In fact, what you were hoping for is this: endless amounts of different kinds of flowers full of nectar and pollen. That's good stuff to feed your family. Finally, you get to the end of that rice field. But what you see is this. Oh no, there must have been a drought recently. The hot weather killed all those blossoms that you were hoping for. Because you, as a bee, you need a lot of flowers to survive. Because flowers provide the nectar and the pollen for bees and many other insects in this world. Bees literally rely on flowers. And climate change plays a big role, and I want to show you how. As we know, climate change changes also the weather patterns of our planet. So you experienced that maybe in the last dry season. For example, an area becomes drier and hotter than in the previous years. Did you experience that? Yeah, when it just didn't rain anymore. That's because of the change in the weather patterns. Now, imagine a place getting hotter and drier. Of course, also the vegetation, the flowers and the trees in that area will react to this change by either adapting or just dying out simply. And what happens is what happened also to you as a bee. You also die out because there is no flowers left. And so the insects, such as you, will either move, that's your other option, or also die out. What does all this mean? It means that climate change does affect also the insect population and the insect diversity on our planet. At that point, let's have a look at the causes of climate change. You might have heard of the very well-known phenomenon called greenhouse effect. I don't want to explain that because you probably know. Okay, let's do that quite quickly because just to complete everything. So as humanity, with our actions, we emit a lot of gases. These gases are called greenhouse gases. It's carbon dioxide, it's methane, nitrous oxide. These are the most common 3 gases. And let's look at where these gases come from and how we humans produce these gases. So there are 4 causes for rising emissions. The first and most influential one is the following. The fact that we burn coal, oil, and gas for energy. So energy can be anything from transportation, from power, from electricity. Okay, so the fact that we burn coal, oil, and gas causes a lot of carbon dioxide in our world. Yeah. Then we come to the number 2. That's the fact that we are cutting down forests, which is also called deforestation. Okay, why is this a problem when we cut down forests? It's bad because trees help to regulate the climate by absorbing the CO2 in our atmosphere. So when they are cut down, that beneficial effect is lost and the carbon stored in the trees is released into the atmosphere, adding to the greenhouse effect. Okay, so that's number 2. We said burning coal, cutting down forests. Number 3 would be very well known to increasing livestock farming, because cows and sheep produce large amounts of methane when they digest their food. Okay, but that's not enough. We got one more, and those are the fertilizers of our agriculture, full of nitrogen. And these fertilizers then produce the nitrous oxide emissions. So there are 4 causes, 3 gases in this world. Yeah, and if we have a look, it's quite interesting, because the last 3 causes are directly linked to agriculture. We cut down forests for animal farming. We eat meat, we grow animals to eat their meat. That's the second one, is again agriculture. And we put fertilizers on the land to grow food. That's quite impressive, right? I mean, okay. It means that agriculture is a big contributor to the climate change. Not the only one, okay. I totally see that, but it's a big contributor. At that point, we should talk about what is conventional agriculture exactly, and why does it produce so much harm? Yeah, we make that quite simple, don't worry. So let's imagine a cornfield. So everybody knows corn, quite delicious, right? But yeah, it's grown that way. It's a wide field, it's huge, it's a monoculture. Monoculture means that there's only one kind of plant growing, nothing else. And this is the way not only corn is grown, but a lot of other foods that we eat. For example, avocado is grown like this. Almonds, a very favorite food of vegan people, me included. It's grown that way, sadly. Cotton that we wear, that everyone loves to wear, is also grown in a monoculture style. But not only that, I mean, wheat, soy, coffee, avocados, yeah, I said already. Pretty much all the staple foods that we eat, that we need also to survive, are grown in this way today. And with this way of growing, like massive amounts of the same kind of plant in a very large area, come, of course, some problems. And these problems then are related to what causes climate change as well. Yeah, not only, but yeah, let's talk about the problems first. So the first problem are pests, because a monoculture field becomes a paradise for insects that love to eat exactly that type of plant. Of course, there are massive amounts, so they multiply like crazy, right? I mean, they have a lot to eat. And as a result, the insect population of that area grows exponentially, yeah, because they have excessive food available, as we said. To cope with that, farmers use synthetic pesticides. what is the problem with that? Because the problem is they don't only poison the unwanted insects like this caterpillar here, but all the insects, including you as a bee. So yeah, it's quite harmful for the insect world. The second problem with conventional agriculture are weeds. It's not a problem only for conventional agriculture, but in general, because weeds happen to grow everywhere where there is soil. And those plants are unwanted by most monoculture farmers. Because, yeah, imagine if you have a lot of weeds growing in there, they compete with the nutrition in the soil, which then, yeah, makes the farmers angry. So what do? They use synthetic herbicides to kill off the weeds, so they don't compete anymore with their main crops. And here's the problem. These herbicides, including the well-known glyphosate, cause serious problems to honeybees and also other insects. But yeah, I'll talk about bees all the time, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's another problem, which is depleted soil. Why? Because the cash crops planted by the farmers absorb all the nutrients in the soil. Okay, that's true for every farmer. But to cope with this, the farmers use synthetic fertilizers, the conventional farmers in general. Why is this a problem? Because on the one hand, these fertilizers degrade the soil in terms of quality, and they also kill the soil life. And on the other hand, in many cases, these synthetic fertilizers leak into the groundwater or into other water bodies that are nearby, and there they cause additional problems. So you can imagine a lot of nitrogen leaking into water. That means a lot of green algae which grow there suddenly, and then they consume all the oxygen in the water. If you're a fish, not very funny, because then, yeah, no oxygen left for you. Soil, there is a little bit to say about soil. I hope you don't mind. Soil is the most important asset that we have. I really care about saying that, because we have to have this clear. A healthy plant producing healthy food can exist only in healthy soil. So sadly, the practices of conventional farming are not enriching the soil. It's rather something like mining, if you want. So yeah, when we are depleting minerals from a rock, that's also like something like more mining. Obviously, if we only take from something, we are left with nothing in the end, right? So if all these nutrition is in the soil, we put our plants there, put our fertilizer there, and then nothing is left in the end. And yeah, that's a big problem right now. And you thought those are enough problems for one story? Here comes the next problem. I'm very sorry to say that, because conventional farming is one of the main causes for insect extinction. Because before we talked about pests and pesticides and weeds and herbicides, and all these substances are responsible for the diminishing populations of insects, pollinators, bees. Yeah, why is this bad, you might ask? Like, why do we actually need insects and pollinators? Because insects are pollinators, or a lot of insects are pollinators, and we need those pollinators to pollinate our fruits and vegetables. And in fact, they do pollinate up to 40% of what we eat. So of what we eat in terms of fruits and vegetables. So losing our insects puts our food security in trouble. So it's not only because bees are cute and everything, but we really need them also. On top of that, bees and other insects are also part of the food chain. So you imagine they are also the food for other animals. So if they die out, then these animals die out. They are part of a system. So yeah, we shouldn't interrupt this system. What animal does eat bees and insects? Well, for example, birds or frogs. So in short, we could say no bees, no birds. Very short. But yeah, don't let's not get into it so much. Yeah, we said no bees, no food. In this graphic is also illustrated very beautifully. So here we have a lot of bees around, so we have a lot of different foods. Only less bees, less food for us, or little, like 0 bees, no food. 0 bees, very little food, I mean, sorry. So let's recap. Conventional farming with deforestation, intensive animal farming, and the synthetic substances like herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, and so on are part of the climate change problem. But not only, it also kills our bees and insects. So the question is, obviously now we have to ask some question. What can we do to reverse climate change from an agricultural point of view? Can we change agriculture, and how to change it and still feed the world? I mean, of course, there are many people who say organic farming and something like that is not profitable, and you cannot grow you cannot grow food without using chemicals. Anyway, let's find the answer to those questions, and let's get back to the second cause of climate change. We will find the answer together. So the second cause was deforestation. Okay. Again, trees help to regulate the climate by absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. So when we cut down the trees, the beneficial effect is lost. So that means 2 things. And the wonderful part is that here the solution is in the problem, and the problem is also the solution. Because if we simply stop or reduce eating meat, we don't have to cut down all these forests. Instead, those forests continue absorbing the CO2 from the atmosphere. Okay. And yeah, that would be it. We just stop cutting down forests, right? And the second part is, if we grow more forests instead of cutting them down, then we can store more CO2 in those trees and have less problems with the CO2 in the atmosphere. Okay. So why not transform our agriculture into something that looks like a forest? And a forest, in this case, with a lot of biodiversity. In this way, we produce food and have forests that absorb CO2. That would be a great win-win, or not. At that point, yeah, what is agriculture that looks like a forest? Does it sound complicated to you? Probably yes. But the good news is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. This kind of agriculture already exists, and it has many names. People call it regenerative agriculture, agroforestry, or permaculture, or biodynamic farming. And the main difference with conventional agriculture is that regenerative farming techniques start with another mindset. And also, if you want, with another thought process. So the mindset would be that one of people working in harmony with nature and mimicking also how nature works and how a forest works. And for example, I mean, have you ever seen somebody go to a forest and put water or water the forest? Probably not. And still these natural ecosystems are finely balanced and work in harmony and store water, right? So it's quite interesting. Another interesting factor is that in such natural systems, there is no waste. And waste, as many of you maybe know from other talks, is also a big problem. Regenerative models teach people how to use waste as a resource instead of wasting it. But this is another topic, and yeah, we could do another video about it if you want. Still, if you are a farmer and you're interested in regenerative agriculture, then please look into these models. And to motivate you a little bit, I have two examples for you. And the first one is from Vietnam. It's Buổi farm from Lam Dong province, about 70 kilometers from Dalat. It's run by Mr. Buyan Tuan, and it's a 3-story coffee forest. So what does it mean? It means that we have 3 layers, just like in a natural forest. And the highest layer actually are fruit trees and nitrogen fixing trees. The understory is our main crop, which means in this case Robusta coffee, very delicious actually. And as a ground cover, he grows, actually doesn't grow them, but they grow wild daisies. And you wonder why does he keep wild daisies there? That's exactly for the pollinators. So he keeps pollinators around all year long because of those wild daisies. Wonderful example. Yeah, but we have another one. It is New Forest Farm from Wisconsin, USA, run by Mark Shepard, very very interesting person and precious mentor of these kind of techniques. And yeah, you should look into his YouTube channels and information, because he really teaches how to do it. And yeah, in his farm, he does the following. He grows staple foods, because he said we need to grow also staple foods. It's not possible to just grow like a little veggie garden or something. So he grows large scale on 106 acres, chestnuts and hazelnuts as a main crop. But the chestnuts are in this case the canopy, and the hazelnuts are the understory. And he intercrops everything with pears, apples, grapes, and grape wines. Yeah. And as a ground cover, he keeps grass, and in the and then he grows also asparagus in the middle. But he keeps grass, and this is interesting because he has grazing animals who just roam the farm freely. In this way, he also gets the fertilizer delivered directly to the plants. What is interesting is always he says we have to look at how nature was before, and he's in this case trying to mimic the oak savanna, which is a kind of savanna home to some parts of the US. Yeah. So as you can see, these farms are very diverse, in contrary to what we saw before in the monocrop field, in the cornfield and so on. And yeah. So yeah, the question is, what can you do? What can you do if you're not a farmer, for example? Because of course, not everyone can become a farmer now. What I would like to stress and emphasize here is that you don't need to be a farmer, because you can vote with your dollar, you can vote with your Vietnamese dong, and it means that you decide where to put your money and what kind of enterprises, what kind of farming techniques you support with your money. Anyway, so there are two things that you can do. The first one, as we said many times before, is eat less meat. So yeah, it's very clear because the meat consumption contributes to cutting down the forests and everything. So we said that many times before. Just start to reduce your meat consumption by 50%. And after that, you switch to 1 or twice a month eating meat. How about this? I mean, you don't have to go vegan tomorrow, just step by step. It's just about the quantity, really. I mean, nobody says that we have to stop eating meat, but just reduce it and can still have it if it's too difficult. We also talked about regenerative farming. So what can you do as a consumer who eats food, right? Very simple, eat organic and buy organic food and support farmers who grow fruits and vegetables without the use of synthetic fertilizers or herbicides and pesticides. Why? Because so far the organic farmers are the closest to what regenerative agriculture means. I see it as them being a gateway to regenerative farming. Because if we consumers demand more organically grown food, then we open up the market for more farmers who try more different things and more different kinds of regenerative farming. And we open the space for clean food production, because if we all demand it, then somebody will grow it, right? And the best part of these kind of farms is that those farms are full of biodiversity and they have soils full of life. And here I have to take you back to our journey. If you think about it, if you were a bee, what would you prefer? You would like farms full of biodiversity, full of different flowers all year round, right? So let's make this planet a place to be. Thank you.